It's time for our case study. So now what we're going to do is take an idea and refine it by passing it through the 4 different stages. The first stage is idea validation. What is our idea? We have an idea that busy professionals will appreciate custom meal boxes. This is working on the assumption that busy professionals want food, but they find it difficult to make meals because of their habits. We have to validate this idea. In this case, I am a professional, and to have a bit of personal context I can share regarding the problem faced by busy professionals. And while that's great, however, I need to be sure that the market is large enough and worth building a solution for. So I'm going to validate my idea either through the use of surveys, focus groups, or interviews. So say I want to start with a survey. Ideally, I'd want to create about 5 questions. That way it's not too long and people will not struggle to fill it out. So this is a sample question. Remember, the goal of surveys is to get as much information as we can from the user without asking them leading questions. So for example, when considering your meals, rank the following in order of importance: variety, cost, or availability. This question could also work for interviews, and it could also work for focus groups. Now, in terms of my strategy, I plan to share it with a few of my friends who work in offices and also ask them to share with 2 or 3 of their colleagues. My ideal sample size is about 20 to 30 people because I'm hoping that a third of them will fill that out and actually give me feedback. At the end of the idea validation stage, using all of the information that I've had, I will then use that to craft a user persona. If I were going with a focus group, for instance, I would probably choose a weekend and ask a few of my friends to come along with 1 or 2 of their own colleagues. I'd cap the session at 2 to 3 hours so that it's not too demanding. And then just to give you an example of a practical way of setting up interviews, it could be as simple as setting up a Skype call or in-person meeting with a few people to get direct feedback. So back to our user persona. This is Alice, and Alice is between the ages of 25 to 34. She typically earns anywhere between 250,000 naira to 550,000 naira a month. And in terms of her habits, she works late and she eats out a lot. But she also values time and social interactions. We finally figured out who has the problem and who we intend to build for. Then we can design a prototype and test this. Users from our idea validation session have let us know that they indeed want a service that allows them to create custom meals. And so one simple way we can prototype this is by drawing paper sketches. The other option will be to explore easy online prototyping solutions that allow us to come up with a prototype in a matter of hours. An example is the Marvel app, Proto.io, Mockups, or Just in Mind. Remember that some of these solutions are free, some of them are paid, some of them tend more towards being design oriented. And so depending on what exactly it is that you're trying to prototype, but also depending on your skills and your natural preferences, you basically can make a choice based on any of the different options that are available. But then we could also run our prototype by running ads. And so we can decide to run a Google ad for about 1 to 2 weeks, or decide to run a Facebook or Instagram ad, or we could print out paper ads and place all around. So imagine if you were in a physical location, for instance, like a university campus, and then you have access to a lot of traffic. That's also another option and another way to leverage feedback from users. The goal at the end of the day is to not make your ads run for too long, because it's not about perfection, but it's about ensuring that we have a good enough sample size that will give us the data that we need and validate the fact that indeed there is a problem that we can solve and there's a market looking to accept the solution that we eventually launch. The other option is to design landing pages. And remember that the difference between prototypes and landing pages is in the type of design. So prototypes typically would be great for digital products. If you want to have screens of your application that you have up on display. But then for landing pages, this is for example a web page, and the goal here will be to collect sign-up information from users or have a page that shows them more information about your product. These are some of the examples of different products that you can use, but there are a wide variety out there that you can choose from. And so now we've designed our prototype, we have to figure out what our target is. And so in this case, for the landing page, the goal would be to have 50 sign-ups. But if we were to go with the ads, it would be great if we had 100 click-throughs. Remember, this is different from views because we could have as many as 500 views, but the actual interest is measured when people click through the ad. Now it's time to build. To build effectively, we need to integrate all of the lessons that we learned from the prototype. And so in this example, one thing that we realized while interacting with users is they suffered from decision fatigue. So we had a whole list of menu options that they could choose from. But what happened is people ended up not being able to choose. We also figured out some useful information around how to price our product offering. It's now time to decide what exactly we want to build. In this case, we'll focus on two key features. The first is to ensure that there is a meal timetable that users can select from. But to make it simple, all we're going to do is create a list where users can select meals for every day of the week. Users will also be able to leave notes in a comment box where they can state what exactly it is their preferences are. So for instance, users might like spicy food, they might not want a lot of salt, or they might have different options that they would want us to consider when making their meals. And then finally, for delivery options, what we will do is we will provide delivery to our users for an additional fee, but we will have fixed delivery times that they can choose from. This will give us the liberty to ensure that we have all our meals packed, and it ensures that it's a more scalable way of testing out our version 1. We have our idea, we have validated our idea, we have built our prototype, we have learned lessons from the initial prototype, and then we have built our MVP. It's now time to measure. How do we ensure that our MVP has been successful? In this case, we'll set 3 goals, and our goals are very simple. So the first goal is we want to have 100 unique signups. This means that we want 100 different individuals who sign up to the website. But we know that not everyone who signs up will pay. And so what we have here is a target of a 10% conversion rate, which isn't too bad, to be honest. And so we hope that we will have 10 users who decide to pay us for our service. And then of the users who decide to pay us for our service, to prove that indeed this is a valuable offering to the market, we have set our goal for returning customers to be 3 users. It will be great to have users who show us that it's not just a fluke that they've used our product, but they actually can become long-time users. And then finally, we need to embed analytics so that we have hard data that shows us how our users are using our products. So in this case, what we're going to do is embed Google Analytics in the website so we can track web page visits, but also track the registration button so we know how many people are visiting the website versus how many people are registering. This also gives us our first conversion ratio. And then we will track the delivery slot buttons. The goal here is to figure out what exactly people's preferences are in terms of delivery options. We're going to stop here. Hopefully, this has given you an overview of a practical way of following all these 4 steps in validating your business idea. It's your turn now.